Hey guys, it's David from Automotive Press. It's pouring rain right now, so it's the best time to go and drive both the Lexus GX 550 and the very similar but different Land Cruiser. Let's go for a drive and compare and see how they feel different on the road. Let's go. Welcome back. So what I'm going to do today is something very interesting, something that you might be waiting for, which is to compare directly the Land Cruiser from Toyota, which is all new as you know, to Lexus GX 550 Overtrail. So the last time I did a comparison between the Land Cruiser and the GX, it was with the GX Premium or luxury version, I should say, and therefore it was not the Overtrail version, and I wanted to wait for that to come out to do another comparison, because now this is a fair comparison. We're comparing the Land Cruiser with a kind of off-road package basically, which is the first edition that I own. And then I'm comparing the GX 550 Overtrail, which has the same kind of off-road adventure type gear. It's going to be interesting to compare the two, and I'm going to start off by driving the Land Cruiser, which is my daily driver. And so I drive this every day. And there are many things I love about the Land Cruiser, as you already know, because I've been talking about it for a while. It feels light, it feels airy, it's easy to drive. The steering has a pretty good feedback. The handling and the sharpness and the cornering is way better than anything else from Toyota in terms of body on the frame SUVs. Like if you compare to an older 4Runner or older GX from Lexus, they all suffer from poor handling, and they tend to move a lot when you corner one side or the other side. But the all new Land Cruiser with the TNGA-F platform has substantially improved the handling and cornering. It stays flat, it's agile, it's actually kind of fun to drive. And the steering, of course, feels a little bit light to my taste because it's now electric steering compared to the old Land Cruiser and the old 4Runners, which all had hydraulic power steering. So yeah, there's a bit of a lack of engagement from that, but it's not bad. There's more feedback than I expected, and the ride is also very smooth. A bit bumpy, I will admit that. Both this one and the GX 550, which I'll hop into soon, has a pretty bumpy ride. And there's not much you can do about that, but these are body on the frame vehicles, and no matter what you do with the tuning and calibration and engineering, they are always going to be a little bit more bumpy compared to unitized bodies such as Lexus TX or Grand Highlander. But for the most part, it's pretty smooth. So let's come back to the Land Cruiser for a moment. What do I like? Well, quick steering, pretty agile character, surprisingly good around corners because it stays flat, it's predictable. The steering is quick for a large SUV anyway, and predictable, balanced, but lacks a bit of a feel and engagement from the road. The ride is a bit stiff and a little bit bumpy, especially with these off-road tires. The Land Cruiser is better with OEM tires that came with this car, which is a Michelin LTX tires. They're not true off-road tires, they're more like a street tires, and therefore they're a little bit smoother in terms of ride quality. But of course I like to put off-road tires on mine, so that's what I have. So ride is a little bit bumpy for those people who's not used to body on the frame trucks, but actually very good considering these are body on the frame SUVs. And you will notice when I jump into the GX 550 that the ride is quite similar, maybe a tad better on the GX, but I'll talk about that once I hop in there. But the biggest difference between the Land Cruiser and the GX 550, of course, is the heart of the vehicle, which is the engine. Because Land Cruiser uses a 2.4 liter turbo hybrid, which is a complicated engine, but reasonably proven now, because this 2.4 turbo has been used in many vehicles within the Toyota family. But regardless, I'm still not all that crazy about this engine. There's no shortage of power or torque, and you can step on the gas and it takes off with lots of passion, and so power and torque is great, acceleration is good. But it is a bit of a raspy engine, especially when you step on the gas all the way or maybe even halfway. And it's not smooth transition as it accelerates, and also when it slows down. So sometimes the transmission downshift and it's a little bit of abrupt. So I think the GX is better from that perspective, actually way better from that perspective, because it's got a V6 turbo instead of a turbo 4. But many of you guys might not care so much, because in terms of power and torque and acceleration, the Land Cruiser is just fine. Given the choice though, I will always take the GX 550's V6 over this one, and so I really wish that Toyota put the same V6 engine in this Land Cruiser because they're turbocharged but not a hybrid, and they feel pretty natural, organic, and I think it's just a really the right match for these body on frame SUVs. So anyway, both are quiet, both are actually quite comfortable. Other than those things I mentioned, I'm not too crazy about the engine as I mentioned, but otherwise it's a really nice vehicle. Now let's hop into Lexus GX 550, which is obviously more expensive, and let's see if I can point out more differences. Alright guys, so now I hopped into the GX 550, and this is a 2025 version, which is basically identical to 2024, but in case you weren't aware, they did raise the whole car by 1 inch. So it basically has a lift kit, but what I suspect the reason that they did that is because the GX 550 for the 24 version had quite a stiff ride, very harsh ride, even compared to Land Cruiser, because Land Cruiser came with Michelin LTX tires, which are kind of the street tires, whereas the GX Overtrail came with Falcon Wild Peak, and maybe the ride was a little bit too stiff for average Lexus buyers. So I think they raised the vehicle by 1 inch, changed the spring and the rates, and that way they can provide a bit softer ride. And in fact, I do feel that the ride has improved quite a bit between 2025 and 2024. The ride is better. It's definitely better in the GX 550. It's a bit more muted. It's a bit softer. It's smooth and refined. And I would say the ride quality of this GX 550 Overtrail, in fact this is Overtrail Plus, is what I expected from Lexus in the beginning when the GX first came out. So right now it's a pretty bumpy road, and it is still bumpier than unitized body cars like the Lexus TX, but for a body on the frame truck or truck type SUV, this is as good as it's going to get. This is actually quite comfortable, pretty smooth and refined. Your passengers will be pretty happy both front and in the back because the ride quality is actually excellent. So if I have to do a direct comparison to Land Cruiser with the way it's equipped with Falcon Wild Peak tires on my particular model, I would say the GX feels, let's say, 5 to 8%, a little bit more refined, a little bit smoother, but not a huge difference. That's something I will say. In general though, if you don't want to buy a SUV with a bit of a bumpy quality, like I said before, with the Land Cruiser, just don't buy a body on frame. There's only so much they can do to smooth the ride out because of the mechanics and the structure in terms of how the body on the frame works. You have a separate frame from the body, and it's also raised a little bit higher, and it's essentially a truck-based platform, so there's only so much they can do to soften the ride. But coming back to other attributes of the GX 550, really the biggest and the most noticeable difference, without a doubt, as I mentioned before, is the powertrain. This one has the 3.4 liter twin turbo V6, no hybrid system. It's the same engine that's used in many other large SUVs at Toyota, including the Tundra. The Sequoia has the hybrid version, and of course even the Lexus LX 600, which is a much more expensive vehicle, the flagship, uses the same 3.4 turbo, although it has a little bit more power. So it's a proven engine, and it's the best engine and the best alignment for this TNGA-F platform SUV. It feels most natural. It kind of feels almost like naturally aspirated engine. The turbocharger works well. It's not very abrupt. It's got lots of power and torque. It's smooth. It's quiet. It's the way that these vehicles should feel. So to be honest, I think Toyota made a bit of a mistake by putting the 2.4 turbo hybrid in the Land Cruiser. They should have put the exact same engine, the 3.4 turbo, into the Land Cruiser as well. They could have tuned it so that there's a little bit more power for Lexus and a little bit less power for Land Cruiser. That would have made sense. But unfortunately, they chose to put the 2.4 turbo hybrid in the Land Cruiser, which isn't my favorite engine. It works well. It's got great power and torque, but it doesn't feel really good in terms of drivability. It's not so smooth. It's a little bit abrupt in terms of transmission shifting and even downshifting when you come down to a stop like this. It's awkward in the Land Cruiser, but as you can tell in the GX, completely natural. It doesn't downshift so quickly. And then now I'm stepping the gas a little bit, upshifting, all smooth. I can barely tell it's shifting at all. And so from that perspective, even though the GX is more expensive, I would rather buy a lower GX 550 trim model than the most expensive Land Cruiser. If you really want to buy the Land Cruiser because you love what it stands for and how it feels, well, buy the GX 550 because this is basically a Lexus version of the Land Cruiser. It's the same car, same body, same chassis, even built in the same factory. Although Land Cruiser is built in 2 different factories, but one of them is Tahara, and this one is also built in Tahara plant. So essentially same quality, even though one is a Lexus and one is Toyota, and everything else is similar. Of course, you get much more upgraded interior and better stereo and so forth as well in the GX 550. So you pay a little bit more, but I think in this case you get what you paid for. The engine difference in terms of feel is substantial. Transmission shifting is also much better. Everything else is similar in terms of the overall feel, in terms of the basic characteristic of the 2 vehicles. It's kind of similar. So you could save a little bit of money by buying Land Cruiser, but there's not a huge difference in price between the 2. So that would be my suggestion. If you're looking for this type of vehicle, pay a little bit more and buy the GX 550, or buy a cheaper GX 550 as opposed to buying the top of the line Land Cruiser. That would be something that I would recommend, and you'll be very happy with the GX 550 because it is exactly what Lexus stands for. It's smooth, refined, comfortable, silky smooth for that matter, and it's extremely well aligned in terms of the engine to the transmission to the ride. Everything feels like it's meant to be. This is exactly what a really good large body on frame SUV should feel and should act and should function, and I love it. I just only wish that it wasn't so expensive, and I wish that at some point they might offer the LX700H 3.4 turbo hybrid in this vehicle, because that would be a beast. If they ever did that by putting the 3.4 turbo hybrid in this vehicle, maybe they can call that car GXF, for F stand for sports, and that could be pretty amazing. I don't think it will ever happen, but you never know. We were surprised that Lexus put a 5-liter V8 in the Lexus IS, so you never know. They might put the Lexus LX700H 3.4 turbo hybrid in this vehicle at some point, and that would be the car to get, I think. So I just wrap up by saying that I love the GX 550 despite the higher prices, especially with a slight revision to the suspension for this year. I still really like the Land Cruiser, but when you drive them back and forth, side by side, one by one, there's no question that the GX is better, and 99.9% of the people will prefer the GX versus the Land Cruiser. But of course, Land Cruiser has a really good reputation, and the name Land Cruiser means something. So many of you guys will still buy the Land Cruiser over the GX and also save a little bit of money. But you know what? For me, this is the one I really want to drive as a daily driver. So I think I will trade in the Land Cruiser for GX 550. And if I do that, I'll give you guys more update as an owner of the GX 550, which should happen pretty soon. I hope you enjoyed my video. If you got questions, please let me know. But I appreciate if you can give me a thumbs up, make some comments, and if you haven't done so yet, would you kindly subscribe as well. Until next video, I'm signing off for now. Thank you so much.